Welcome to this lecture. In the previous lecture, you answered the question, why you? Why should the company hire you? In this lecture, I'm going to ask you to expand your horizon a little bit and think a little bit longer term than this current position. I want you to think about your career journey beyond what you're applying for right now. For you to expand your mind to think this long term, you first need to understand that there are 3 stages that any person would go through in their career. The first is what is known as a dependent phase. This is where you start off in a career and you are dependent on other people to tell you what to do and to guide you in that role. The second is what is known as an independent phase. That's usually where you are working on your own. You do not have any direct reports. And the third stage is interdependent. That's usually where you are a leader in a business and you have reportees in your team and you are also perhaps leading teams and teams of people. With that in mind, I now want to introduce you to what I call the 7-step to leadership. In order to progress in your career, there are 7 steps that any person takes. And in order to transition to that next step, there are certain skills that you need to accomplish and fulfill and gain experience on before you ideally move to the next step. As I take you through these 7 steps, I'd like you to reflect on where you believe you are and what skills you currently have. And as I share these other skills with you, perhaps write on some of the skills that you believe that you can still develop on, that you might not yet have experience on. Here are the 7 steps. The first is learning, then it's execution. Number 3, it's asset. Number 4, it's delivery. Number 5 is edge. Number 6 is range. Number 7 is steering. I'm about to explain what each of these steps mean. As you progress through your career, it's so important that you balance your ambition with your experience. What I mean by that is, I know that we are all ambitious and you long for these certain positions within companies, but apply for them only once you are backed up with experience. And I can't emphasize this too much because I've seen it too many times when people apply for positions prematurely because they're looking for the fancy office, the title, perhaps the remuneration that comes with the position, but they apply too soon and it's not backed up with relevant experience. And once this person is in this role, then they have to perform. And because they haven't got the relevant experience to back them up, then usually their experience or the lack of experience shows for itself and their personal brand credibility comes down. So I'll repeat that again. Balance your ambition with your experience. Here's the details behind those 7 steps. When you are in the learning phase, you are usually new to a company. Usually you are a newly qualified graduate. You know your role in terms of your new position, and what is needed of you is to learn as much as you can about this company. You need to see yourself as a sponge, learning from everyone around you and you taking the time to learn as much as you can about your role and the company. The key skills in this learning phase is to be curious, to ask questions, and be willing to learn. Once you go through this phase, which takes about 6 months to 1 year, you move on to level 2, which is the execution phase. At this phase, your need is to be able to learn quickly. Show people that you are adaptable and that you are flexible, that you can take on new tasks. You need to be able to prove your worth. At this stage, you are no longer considered to be a newly qualified grad, and people expect you to perform in your role. It is no longer sufficient for you to just show up and collect your paycheck at the end of the month. The key skills at this level is to be adaptable, to be open to change, to apply your knowledge from the first level. And finally, to show people that you are willing to learn regardless. Once you are ready for this, you can move on to the next level, which is known as the asset level. Here you are a mature contributor. After being in the company for about a year and a half, you are appointed into a position. You are contributing at a functional level, perhaps the lowest level within a business unit. And you are part of a business unit contributing to that business unit's success. Because you are now part of a formal team, your key skills is to be very deadline driven. Show that you can achieve your deadlines. You also need to show the skill of being part of a team, to be someone who can be collaborative in nature. You need to show that you can deliver on your outputs. Once you do this, level 4 is about delivery. In this level, you are now a first-time manager. And let's face it, it's hard enough managing ourselves, and now you have at least 2 or 3 people reporting into you. And so it's not about making people change to be like you. It's about learning how to deal with the diversity of people around you. Once you embrace that people are different from you, you now need to show that you can embrace that diversity and still meet your own deadlines. Some of the key skills as a first-time manager to show to other people is that ability to manage a team, to be able to work under pressure regardless of the situation, and learn to bring out the best in people. Level 5 is about showing that you have an edge. You are no longer a first-time manager, now you are the functional manager. An example of this is like you are the business unit manager. You are head of tax. You are head of auditing. You are head of that department. You are able to show that you can think creatively, and you also need to show that you can use your personal judgment. You see, in the earlier levels, it would have been okay if you went to someone else and shared a problem with them. At this level, you need to solve your own problems. People are coming to you with problems to solve. And so, key skills in this level is being able to make decisions, being able to come up with innovative ways to solving problems, and being able to handle challenges regardless of how big or small they are. Level 6 is all about range. Here you are directing projects. You are part of strategic scenario building. You are leading and contributing teams and teams of people. And so at this level, you are seen to be sort of senior exec to executive level. The key skills in this level is learning to be persuasive, be able to negotiate with teams of people around you, both internal to the business and external to the business. You need to be able to handle projects. So project management and project execution is critical. Stakeholder engagement becomes much more significant at this level. Because of your senior position, most likely you are speaking to people both inside and outside of the company. So communication skills and that public relations ability is another skill that's needed at this level. Finally, the last level in your career journey is known as steering. Here you are considered to be the CEO, the MD, or the director of a company. And here you are managing teams and teams of people. You need to know something about strategy and how to implement strategy. You need to be able to bring out the best of many teams and work with the complexity of business on a very large scale. Some of your key skills at this level is to be a bit of a generalist. It's no longer sufficient just to have technical expertise in your chosen area of study. You need to know something about everything in the business. Something about marketing, about sales, about operations. And this diversity of knowledge gives you that understanding that you need to lead at this level. You also need to be somewhat of a change agent. Because of your MD capacity, you need to be able to read the market and the science that's happening in the business and be that agent of change to make change happen quickly. Your engagement with both internal and external stakeholders means that you need to be very good with communication, be able to inspire and motivate a team, be able to handle a crisis if you need to, and you need to be able to convince and persuade your teams toward your vision. What I've shared with you right now is the 7 levels to leadership and the skills needed to move from a newly qualified graduate right up to MD role. But let's take a step back a little bit and look at potential versus experience. In this diagram, I've got career timeline on one axis and your age on the other. And what is important to realize is that your perceived value, which is the value in which recruiters are looking for, is equal to your potential plus your experience. When you are a newly qualified graduate, you really have more potential because you lack experience. So in your 20s, 35s, thereabout, that age bracket is where your company or the potential recruiter is looking at your qualifications that signal your potential. And what is needed between ages 35 and beyond is not just qualifications, but your track record. And this is where the debate comes in. Will extra qualifications make you more valuable? And the answer is yes and no. It depends on how you are using that qualification and convert it into practical application, which is equals to experience. When you are entering that interview room, you need to understand what is the goal of the company and how your potential or your experience is going to contribute to that. If you can be very clear on that question, you can convey that message to your recruiters. When a company does employ you and they employ this perceived value, which is equals to your potential plus your experience, after a certain point in time, if that experience does not match your potential, you will not stay for very long within that company, because eventually they will see that what they have appointed is not equal to what they're getting out of. So you can have great potential, but you are not performing. And this is vital for you to understand. Yes, it's great to be appointed within these positions, but at the end of it, you need to deliver on your value. So when I put this together between dependent and independent, the learning phase is where you test your training. Your qualifications has given you a door to open into your career. And that first position allows you to test the application of your qualification. In the execution and the asset phase is where you get to develop your speciality. By being appointed into different roles in this phase, which could be anything between 2 to 5 years in your career journey, you get an insight as to what you enjoy, the type of role and responsibilities that most stimulate you. And in that time, you develop your speciality. And then 5 years and beyond, you start leading your speciality. And that's where you become a first-time manager. In stages 5 and 6, which is developing the edge and gaining range, you lead complexity beyond your speciality. And that's where you learn about other areas of the business that's beyond your technical expertise. And finally, when you are steering the ship, when you are that MD of the company, you're leading even more complexity, or you are starting again. And what I mean by starting again is, after being in a CEO or MD position for a period of time, you might perhaps consider to start your own business. If you are looking at this journey in terms of the 7 steps to leadership, you will notice that they spell the word leaders. L for learning, E for execution, A for asset, D for delivery, E for edge, R for range, and S for steering. Because that is the 7 steps for you to being a leader in business. I hope that this lecture has given you a bit of insight into your career journey and giving you a bit of an awareness of where you fit within this career journey. I'm also hoping that it has given you some insight into the skills that you have right now and the skills that you still need to develop as you progress as a leader in business. When you are clear on where you are now and where you're going to be, you can walk into that interview room with not only a clear understanding of your current skills, but you can also convey that message to that recruiter or your potential employer to say how that particular position is going to help further develop your skills as a leader in business. When you say to them, I'm looking at this position because it's going to allow me to improve my leadership skills. I've never managed a group of people before, and now in this position, I'll be able to develop that skill. And that shows great self-awareness. When you have great self-awareness, that means people can rely on you to handle even greater complexities within the business. And that is the whole outcome of this lecture, is to make you aware of where you are now and where you still need to get to, so that when you walk into that interview room, you can convey that message to your potential employers. What follows is a journal exercise, and I'd encourage you to first reflect on some of your learnings on this lecture. And when I move on to that journal exercise, it'll help you to encompass all of these lecture learnings in this module on helping you with your interview process. Reflect on your lessons, and I'll see you on that journal exercise lecture.